We are so back, and I gotta love how the hell this episode starts. Like, you guys, you really gotta tease us with Priscilla. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, she's attractive as hell, but my godly, this is overkill if anything. But something I did like about this beginning part is we have a conversation between Priscilla and Anastasia. It is related to their nights for sure, and it's interesting that whenever the topic of Al, like, there is trust between Al and Priscilla, but she's also aware that he is not telling her things. But either way, she basically gives the blessing that they can do whatever the hell they need Al to do in order to essentially get a win on the Witch's Cult. Not only that, but I really love how confident Priscilla is that honestly, she doesn't need a plan. All she needs is the songstress Liliana, herself, and that's it. Confrontation, easy win. Essentially, the confidence part of her that honestly doesn't need a plan, which is pretty badass if you ask me. And then we move on to the Otto stuff. He finds Felt and her little group are essentially dealing with Lybat and Kaidos. While that's going on, we also have Garfield and Wilhelm essentially encounter Lust. Well, Lust and then the little two opponents of theirs. You have the blue ogre, Corrigan, I think that's the name. And then you have Teresia. So the obvious one, Garfield versus the giant, and then Wilhelm versus his wife. So we have that. We have Priscilla and Liliana confronting Sirius. And then we jump back to the end of last episode. It's Subaru and Reinhardt not only confronting Regulus, but also there to save Amelia, which, my godly, I love that everything is essentially coming to full force. And also we have Julius and Ricardo versus Roy Alphard. So, like I said, everything is coming together as the counterattack has essentially started. And the first thing I gotta love is Subaru, obviously, and infatuated with Amelia, especially that she's in a wedding dress. But I also love that Regulus is like, what? You're the one that she's cheating me with? I mean, I'd get if it was Reinhardt, but you, it's like, yeah, you're that pathetic, Regulus. No, actually, it's even more pathetic that Reinhardt does explain about his sword and how, because Regulus is like, aren't you just the guy who swings a sword? Essentially trying to insult Reinhardt, and Reinhardt just like, yeah, I guess. But the sword says that you're not even worthwhile. It only unsheaths when it's a worthy opponent. And unfortunately, you aren't worth it, to which I love it. He literally gets him as like, now listen here. It would have been funny if he said, or if they put it in the subtitles, now listen here, you little shit. Because you know that meme of pissing someone off and be like, all right, listen here, you little shit. Anyway, so he does try to kill them. This fails because Reinhardt is super speed. So instead, the coward decides to say, you guys come any closer and I'll just kill my wives. And it'll be your fault because you used me as a tool to kill my wives. And then just proceeds to essentially blame them for his actions. Amelia does take the opportunity to try to stop him. However, even Subaru kind of acknowledged that that's not going to do anything. So he does try to kill her. And although Subaru is losing his ever freaking mind because it makes sense, Reinhardt does get his attention. And he uses essentially, all right, what is your demands? And Regulus obviously gets a high horse. It's like, you will remove your sword and you will come over here. So Reinhardt does this. He gets a little close enough to where Regulus is like, all right, that's good enough. You're gonna take this one attack and you will take it. And yeah, Reinhardt essentially does that and tanks the attack. If not, it outright kills him. So Regulus, you bastard. This is the only good thing I'll tell you. You killed the strongest character in ReZero. And although I find it funny that he's like, no matter who you are, death always comes far too quickly. And essentially this completely fucks up whatever he was thinking, because he essentially didn't expect Reinhardt to get up and be like, all right, you're gonna release the hostages now. Because he obviously was going to back out of his own word. And yeah, with Subaru getting the wife that of Regulus that Amelia befriended, like in towards him, so more safe area, and Amelia throwing her ice sword at Reinhardt, Reinhardt proceeds to wreck the shit out of Regulus. But before talking about Regulus, the trash he is, anymore, we have to address Otto's unlucky timing of dealing with Lybat and Kaidos again. And not only that, but also trying to gain information, because clearly Subaru had informed them about Roy Alphard. And now there's another Gluttony, so obviously now the whole thing is, well, there's two of them, which Libat and Kaidos confirms. And then obviously there's conversation amongst the Kiritaka's forces there, that Otto recognizes them as, well, Kiritaka's like bodyguards. And then obviously they recognize Otto as the internal affairs person of the Emilia camp. Obviously the two kind of know that this is kind of unlucky of them, to which Felt doesn't like that. And I'm a little surprised Libat and Kaidos essentially is like, hey, no need to argue or end this. Like, okay, Lai, like, first of all, they're all kind of at edge because of you. But anyway, one thing I did wanted to note is he was more looking for Subaru, the one who did the broadcast. And that was where his interest was mainly lying. And Otto tries to do his merchant stuff. And I know I've read this part recently, but a lot of the fuck up that came from Otto was showing sympathy. Like, he was internally being sympathetic with Lai. And Lai kind of caught on to that, as well as that he's a merchant. And that, oh, you'll have a price for everything. You are the scum of the earth, all that. So Otto really did fucked up really badly here. Because obviously now Libat and Kaidos has lost his goddamn mind. And yeah, obviously, the fight starts, and Otto, he confidently mentions that a merchant always has an ace up his sleeve. To which I'll give Otto credit for that. He managed to catch Lai off guard with an attack from sea beasts from the looks of it, and honestly makes sense. Otto has his divine protection of communication, languages, and well, yeah, he definitely caught Lai off guard. And then we move on to a little bit of, as I mentioned earlier, Julius and Ricardo facing off against Roy Alphard. And Roy was not really bothered by Julius's attack before we move back to the main star, Subaru, who is obviously checking on Emilia, making sure she's okay. Obviously, she mentions that she's not going to marry Regulus, who isn't the someone she loves. And Subaru is relieved of that, but also it's like, oh, who is this somebody you love? Like, clearly wants it to be him. But the attention goes back to his injuries, because let's not forget, Subaru's leg is like really badly fucked up. And his arm is obviously with the dragon blood stuff. And then the conversation moves to Reinhardt being alive. And it's like, oh yeah, I did die. I used the divine protection of the Phoenix to revive. And it's like, Subaru obviously rightly getting mad at him. The wives are all clearly just not too afraid to do anything, because to them, no one can beat Regulus. Regulus is literally that disaster that cannot be avoided. However, obviously Subaru and Emilia aren't just gonna sit by and let anything else more happen. Regulus comes out of his, well, hiding hole and obviously super pissed the hell off. So Reinhardt is essentially distracting Regulus. So in order to buy Subaru and Emilia time to figure something out. And obviously Emilia kind of can't really move a lot with the dress, so she kind of rips it a bit, showing a bit of her legs, which I am surprised Subaru is managing to hold this together, because that would probably cause him to go comatose. But yeah, they kind of figured that they can't really stay there and they need to move to a different plan. So Subaru manages to communicate with Reinhardt, and that's because Reinhardt can use the divine protection of telepathy. And yeah, obviously we're acknowledging that Reinhardt's more busted than anything else. But yes, essentially they're moving to a new plan, and that plan is not being there. So Reinhardt is clearly just keeping Regulus at bay, as well as following with whatever Subaru and Emilia's plan are. But there is something to note, is that Subaru and Reinhardt had, like what Subaru had explained to Emilia, they know that Regulus is invincible, especially now. So the plan is definitely to try out the multitude of plans they had in motion to see which one can break through this barrier or invincibility, because clearly everyone has a weakness. And Subaru is going to be the one to find it. Since Reinhardt is the powerhouse, Subaru is essentially the one that's going to be the key to solving Regulus's busted abilities. And that's not all that happens after this, because right by the end of the episode, we definitely have Wilhelm and Garfield, like, with their little fighting going on that I didn't get a chance to mention a lot. We see Teresia's face, which is pretty daunting. Garfield's being pushed. Elsa makes her unique appearance. And then what was seen to be lust is not there. It isn't even her. And that's because she is back in the base where Felix and Crush are at. And unfortunately, Felix now has to deal with the one that caused his leader, or the one he cares about, Crush, in her position. He now has to deal with her. So that is unlucky because Felix is not necessarily a fighter, and Crush is not exactly in the best position to fight. So one section is completely fucked at the moment. But otherwise, it's just, like I said, Priscilla really did start the episode off very, very interesting. But other than that, like, if I were to rate this episode 10 out of 10, best way to come back, Cour 2, Counterattack. This is the Counterattack. And I can't wait to see Regulus get screwed. Because out of all the Sin Archbishops, obviously I hate Regulus the most. He's the bitch. And he's going to be taken down. And I can't wait for that moment to happen.